for the documents handling case involving former Vice President Mike Pence and now President Joe Biden. What makes this Trump case different?
Well, there's a few things. One, look, Hillary Clinton obviously did the wrong thing by having that email server, by having classified material on there. That's a huge problem, right? President Biden shouldn't have had those documents at his facilities. Neither should have Vice President Pence. In the case of Biden and Pence, both owned up to it, turned them over, and that was that. In the case of President Trump and potentially in the case of Secretary of State Clinton, there was some effort to, the server was wiped. In the case of President Trump, these documents were withheld. They even had attorneys sign a document saying we've turned over everything, and then we found another 102 documents, right? Boxes were moved. They weren't in the room the attorneys searched. That evinces a decision to withhold the documents. It evinces obstruction of justice. That's why these charges are there. It's not because the special prosecutor is making them up. It's the facts about what happened laid out in the indictment. If these facts are proven, it's going to be very hard for a jury not to convict.
Ona, we expect Mr. Trump to appear on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern in a South Florida federal courtroom. Help us understand why the special counsel in this case chose to bring these charges in Florida, and what will you be watching for on Tuesday?
Well, the reason that these were brought in Florida is almost certainly because the charges all center around the retention of the documents and the decision to obstruct justice and to misrepresent the information that Trump held. And all of these are things that happen in Florida. So what's interesting is that the charges do not include the removal of these documents from the White House. They don't have anything to do with the transport of the documents to Florida. They really focus on the holding of those documents in Florida, and then what the president did after the federal government continually asked for those documents. So the National Archives asked for the documents. There was a subpoena for these documents. There was repeated requests for these documents. And the president in Florida continually refused to hand those over. So all of the actions covered in this indictment are actions that took place in Florida, and that's why this case is being brought in Florida, even though it's important to note that they certainly knew that this was going to lead to a less favorable jury, almost certainly. It's a more heavily Republican area than they would have had if they brought these charges in Washington, D.C. But it's really what they had to do because the conduct that's being covered in these charges is conduct that took place in Florida, so it has to be charged in Florida.
And what's your assessment of the choice of venue here in this case?
Yeah, I think it's exactly about venue. What they don't want to run into is the president challenging venue, delaying, spending time litigating where should the case be heard and the like. By having it in Florida, I think it is exactly right. They may trade something off, but at the end of the day, they get the case to move forward as quickly as possible. And you saw Jack Smith say it. I want this case to move forward expeditiously. The defendant in this case, the former president, has a right to a speedy trial, so we'll move this thing forward. Now, I have no doubt that President Trump's legal team will try to delay this thing, try to get put off beyond the election. And frankly, that may not be crazy. If you think about it, you have a sitting president whose Justice Department is prosecuting the leading candidate on the other side. This is a politically fraught investigation and prosecution. It's a real challenge.
Jamil, Jaffer, and Ona Hathaway, we thank you both.